Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, so please write your questions in the chat area as they come in. If we don't have time to answer all, we will make them available on our website. You will also be able to access a recorded version of this webinar from the webinar archive section of dclab.com. Today, we are thrilled to introduce Dr. JoAnn Hackos, President of Comtech Services. For more than 30 years, Dr. Hackos has addressed audiences internationally on subjects ranging from content management, project management, effective interfaces and information, minimal information products, usability testing, and online and web-based information, to managing the information design and development process. Her workshops are dedicated to enhancing the practices and products that will best promote customer satisfaction. She authored Information Development, Managing Your Documentation Projects, Portfolio and People, Content Management for Dynamic Web Delivery, Managing Your Documentation Projects, Standard for Online Communication, and User and Task Analysis for Interface Design. JoAnn is a fellow and past president of the International Society for Technical Communications. Our session today, we will be reviewing the preliminary results of the survey following the trends, Is Your Content Ready?, as we discover how the changing requirements for delivery are affecting your business today and how you anticipate those requirements will affect your business decisions in the next few years. Without further ado, welcome Dr. JoAnn Hackos.
Thank you, Adam. I hope that everybody is everybody that's on the call has completed the survey. And if you haven't, be sure to go to the announcements on the DCL or the CIDM websites and click on the survey and complete it, because we're going to keep it open until the 20th of April. And we'll be doing a complete analysis at the Content Management Strategies Conference in Seattle at the end of April. So there'll be more information coming along. But also I want to apologize for my voice today. I've had a bad cold. At least today I can talk, so it's definitely an advantage, but I know I sound a little groggy. But I want to give you some idea today of the preliminary results that we have from the Trends in the Industry survey for 2014. And I'm going to be comparing this with results from a very similar survey with a few updates from 2013. So I think we've got some really interesting information to convey. Let me start out just by giving a bit of a setting for what we see sort of happening in the world of technical content. One is that we are all involved in this business of knowledge transfer. Those of us who write content, who help to promote that content to customers, are the knowledge workers, and information developers are really helping our consumers to be more successful, to buy our products with better understanding as part of the pre-sales and as part of post-sales, to be more productive and successful in their work. And that's really, I think, what we all focus on in trying to bring this story to our customers. As knowledge workers, we also have some opportunities today that we didn't have a few years ago. And those are the use of social technologies. That's something we chose to explore really quite carefully in the 2013 and 2014 surveys, because these things help us to improve our own productivity in terms of getting our message across to our consumers, to make sure that they're getting the information they need and in the forms that they need. So if we look at consumer behaviors today, and this is based upon some major surveys done by McKinsey and other organizations. 1.5 billion people using social media globally, and then an increasing use of social media. It's, I think the number that I just read was that 50% of all inquiries, searches on Google, are being made from mobile devices. So that means, I think, that our information has to be available to people on mobile devices, right? if that's what they're using. 80% of those consumers use social networks of some sort themselves, where they're, adding information. And in many cases, adding content to the content that we're generating. Social network enables our consumers, it enables us to get information about our consumers faster and at lower cost than ever before. And when you think about that in terms of content developers, we've always said that it's critical that we know who it is that's consuming our information. Who are we writing to? And yet, as you all know, we frequently have to say we don't know our customers because there seems to be so many barriers in the organizations we work for between us and the customers. We don't have time to go talk to customers. We don't have good access to customers. Customers are too busy. Well, social technologies, social networks enable us to interact with customers in a lot more direct ways. And they allow us to communicate directly to our customers. And those are the things that we want to know about in terms of technical content today. Okay, so knowledge workers, what are we like? 28% of our time is spent on emails. I think that's absolutely true. We also know that emails are one of the best sources of correspondence with customers. If we can get our customers messaging us, asking particular questions of us about getting content, then I think we have a big advantage. We spend 20% of our time, I think this is clear, for me it's probably more, searching for information. Searchable information can reduce the time it takes for us to search for things by a significant percent. And if we can increase our collaboration, then we're more likely to increase our own productivity. So what do we see as these trends? How do we summarize them? Moving to mobile devices is clearly in the interest of information developers. We need to realize that people are accessing our information from mobile devices, and we need to take advantage of what mobile devices can provide us in getting information into the hands of our customers. We're also seeing increased collaboration, that we are working with many, many different parts of our organization, including our customers, to produce content. The content is not only the purview of technical communication. It's never been. But we're more likely to need to increase our collaboration with other parts of our organizations. Customers are coming to us with more intelligent devices. They have ways of looking for information, searching for information that they never had before. And on the other hand, we have an opportunity to gain information, data about our customers, from those same devices. What are they looking for? How are they looking for information? What questions are they asking? What information seems to be most satisfying their needs? What are the top questions that they come asking for our information? And we can produce assets that become services to our customers. So we really see ourselves, I think, in 2014 and forward, in the service business. We're in the business of producing information services. And we need to do that with close connection to our consumers of those services. The better connections, the more effective we're going to be as communicators. So where do we go next? Let's take a look at what we've seen in the data so far. Well, like we expect, in many, many cases, of course, we've still delivered our content as PDFs. But what was interesting to me between 2013 and 2014 was this percentage declined. It's the first time I've seen it decline. It went from 92% to 89%. Now that's not a huge decline, but it is a decline, and I think that's very, very interesting. Now, at the same time, look at the second piece of data. Delivering content as HTML took an enormous leap in 1 year, from 19% to 71%. That's an amazing increase. So we're finding we may be delivering PDF, but right alongside it, we're presenting that content in HTML on the websites. Now, use of mobile applications still remains pretty low. This is what people are doing today, but wait till we see what they want to do. Now, one of the things I did find interesting was a significant increase in the use of YouTube from 3.5% to 18%, in wikis from 3% to 16%. Those are things that are beginning to really contribute to the content portfolio that we have to manage. So this is a picture for 2014 with the comparisons of what people are doing today. Now, let's take a look at what they hope to do tomorrow. And I think what you ought to see is this shift in these numbers, in the percentages. This is really, really interesting. We see PDFs continuing to decline, going from 80% in 2013 for future publications to 72%. Now, it's interesting. If we go, let me go back to this a second. Remember that in 2013, people said, 92% of them said they were producing PDFs, right? And that declined a little bit to 89%. But last year, in 2013, people said they were going to reduce the PDFs to about 80%. Well, it didn't happen entirely, right? But it happened to a certain extent. So we see that number going down as people predicted in 2013. We also see this huge increase in HTML. Last year, 23% of people predicted that 23% would publish with HTML. This year, it's 82%. Help systems stay about the same. Mobile applications and mobile devices also stay about the same, but remember that people aren't using these tools. They aren't using those tools. So their wishes stay the same, 50 to 60% wanting to move to mobile applications and mobile devices for their content. YouTube increasing enormously from 7% to 26%. Wikis from 5% to 22%. So that real significant wish for the future. I think people are really getting the idea that we need to change. So here's a bit of my summary. The trends to social media are remarkable. Our industry is really looking in this direction. YouTube going from 7% to 26%. Wikis from 5% to 22%. Remember, wikis are a two-way street. Customers can comment. HTML content from 23% to 82%. Those are enormous changes, and I think they're very much in line with what we're seeing in the industry as a whole. Customers moving to these forms of these resources before they're going to go and look at traditional resources, certainly before they're going to read long, complex documents. Customers are demanding even more, however. When we asked, what are your customers asking for? What did we find out? 66% said their customers are asking for content on mobile devices. 54% want videos, right? Even more than we're willing to produce today. 56%, here's interesting, right? Want topic-based content, not books. And 41% continue to want embedded help systems. You know, information that is right in the context, if they're using software, of course, right in the context of what it is that they're trying to learn. Okay, so what are we saying now? Now, let's see how ready we are. What percentage of your content do you want to publish electronically by the end of 2014? Well, we got only one person, one response out of 215 that said none, right? In 2013, that response was 4. Not significantly, statistically significant, but certainly an interesting anecdote. Then you can see that the vast majority, 76%, or in this case, about 70%, intend to move their content to electronic publishing. Now, I think by electronic publishing, we mean publishing that is not PDF, which I guess is electronic, but only in a very rough way. Our sample size, remember, was about, at this point in the survey, about 219 when I accumulated this data. We've gone up since then, and those of you who haven't responded, please do, because we'll update the data. Okay, so the problem is, you know, how do we get to these new forms of publishing from what we've been doing? You know, how easy is that going to be? That's what we really want to look for. Are the perceived costs of content influencing what you're trying to do? Well, the results here were nearly identical to 2013. That about a quarter of people responding say yes. The cost of converting their content into some way that they can publish electronically is influencing their behavior. But with the high percentage of no's, it's not influencing our behavior, which is coming in about 75%. That means that it isn't the cost of conversion that's stopping people, even though we're far away from where we want to be, according to the statistics on where we are now and where we know we need to be and where our customers want us to be. So ready or not, is your content ready to support your digital business requirements over the next 2 years? Well, so far, we're getting about the same results as a year ago. It doesn't seem to be changing too much, which is, I think, troublesome, right? 46% are saying, yes, their content is ready, but a full 30% are saying no. And others say, we don't know. So 50%, right, 54% say either it's not ready or we don't know if it's ready. Wow. That is far too many. You know, that is far too many that are really unprepared today, I think, to move forward. And I think that when I talk to CIDM members, when I talk to people in our industry, when I'm there giving workshops on things like minimalist publishing, it's really pretty clear that people are scared, that they aren't ready, that there's so much to do, there's so much to learn. So we talk to them about what they perceive as the barriers to digital readiness. And, whoops, there we go. Here's what everybody's saying. You know, and this is, I think this is pretty predictable, right? Budget, budget, budget. And time is money. So insufficient time means the same thing as insufficient budget. Because it means we don't have enough people, we don't have enough money to make this move, because we're so, I think, so pressed to do things, you know, to do things we've always been doing. It's very hard for an organization to say, let's stop doing something in order to do something new. We need to move our content into electronic readiness. We need to move to topic-based authoring. But we're so stuck with creating content that no one is looking at, that no one is reading, that we have a hard time making that move. People feel they don't have enough knowledge to make the move, or they've had prior negative experiences. They've tried, and it's proven to be costly, time-consuming, doesn't work. More barriers. Okay, come on. Get these things to change. Our content isn't really ready to move. Well, I mean, that's a really good case to say we have to make changes. The content is stuck in formats that don't work, in organization that it doesn't work. Customers want direct involvement in customizing their own content. Well, to do that, we've got to give them smaller pieces to work with. It's not much fun to say, you know, here's the PDF and good luck. See if you can customize it to yourself. It's more likely that they'll print it out and make copies of the pages they want and distribute them physically. The content is so disorganized with multiple versions of the same content that customers cannot find what they need. I hear this kind of case over and over again. You know, the same content in more than one place, difficult to find, versions that are not exactly the same, but no control over that, content disorganized, so it's difficult for customers to look at the content. We were doing a customer study recently, and one of the customers showed us or talked to us about the website. He said, I never go there because it just has a list of PDFs. And I just don't have the time to try to figure out what in the world, you know, where in the world the answer to my question is in all these documents. And it might take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to download. And then I find out, well, it wasn't the right document. So that the organization of the content is just not conducive to the mobile, fast working customer who needs an answer now. We also, customers, remember, are asking for video, increased use of YouTube. And yet what we hear from people and what we heard in the survey is we don't know how to do that. You know, that's new stuff. How do we get started doing that? How do we make that information useful? More barriers. Lack of time. Our content is specifically designed for print and PDF. 38% of people responding said that that was the case with their content. 35% said they were writing books, not topics. 30% said they had no reuse mechanisms in place. Multiple groups control content delivery. That is an interesting dilemma because I think what we're seeing is that groups creating the content don't have control over how it's presented. Maybe it's an IT organization or a web development organization that controls the content delivery, and yet the content delivery is just not working very well. What I think, by the way, I think there's some answers to that, however, because we have now more and more systems available that can help us package content in an interesting and useful way and deliver that to a website as a whole, rather than having to ask our IT professionals to develop a resource for that content to be displayed correctly. We see a lack of management support for restructuring content. 32% reported they don't have management support to make the changes to their content that they know they should make. Multiple groups controlling content delivery. 36% said that they don't have the tools that meet their needs. They have lack of experience with new technologies. So we're seeing, this kind of long list of the problems that people are encountering, and I'm sure that some of you are really experiencing the same things as well. And at the same time, the customers are demanding. What do we need that is going to be different? How do we do this differently? And what do we do about that? Well, some of us said we aren't moving to these new ways of doing things. Customers are demanding new kinds of information. Information in new ways. 60% said they know that about their customers. 13% said they know that their companies are losing market share to competitors that provide better information. Well, that's really scary, isn't it? Supporting customers through live phone calls is expensive. And we're concerned. 58% said we're concerned that we need to change or we're going to be left behind. Right? Customers want information in new ways, and we've got to be prepared to do that. I just think there's no other solution today than to really be prepared to change. Otherwise, we feel, will we get left behind? And when I get a number like that, the 58% of our respondents said, we feel we're going to get left behind unless we do these things in new ways, then we've got to make a case for change. Okay, so what is the case? Excuse me, What is the case that we need to make? Well, these are the kinds of things that we heard from people. One, 55% of you said we need better tools. We need better ways to create information. We need better ways to publish information. We need better ways of getting information about our customers. We need to have ways to create content that can be used in multiple devices. We need help to do this. We need tools that are really going to work for us. And I hope that the vendors who are developing these products are listening. We also learned that we need better support from our own organizations. We need to make the case that that IT organization that controls the tools provides the support that we really need. 46% of you said we need to have a better story to tell senior management to get the funding and support we need for the tools and the support from the corporate IT organization to do things right. How are we going to do that, right? One of them is 46% of you said you need help in making a better business case. Well, I'm hoping this presentation gives you some evidence that the perception that we have, that the customer demands has changed exponentially, is there. Let's use this kind of information then to go back to management to say, we don't want to be left behind. Here's our business case. We need to know more about our customers. We can do that using social media. But it can't be the marketing department's the only one allowed to use social media. We hear that a lot. It's only marketing. We're not allowed to do this. We don't have any control of what goes into social media. Well, if you look at the kinds of organizations that are actively engaged in social media with technical content, you'll see that it's amazing the kind of connection they get with customers. The CIDM e-newsletter that comes out this week, the April 1st newsletter, will have the report of our study on social media with enormous amounts of good stories of customers that are doing, of companies that are doing this really effectively. 23% of you said you'd like some help You'd like help with people who understand what to do. And I might suggest that not only is there consulting help, but there's also help in conferences and workshops. We've been doing a workshop for a couple of years now on mobile devices that is, I think, increasingly popular, to know how to do HTML5 output, to move to mobile devices, and even to restructure the information so it's readable in small formats, so it doesn't overwhelm people with an entire screen full of gray. It's not what anybody's looking for. So how do we make that kind of case, right? Convincing the staff to change is also identified by a third of our respondents as a real challenge. That the people who are producing the content, the people who work with us, are the ones who have to change, who have to think about writing in new ways, creating content for new media, perhaps moving into video production, thinking about content and presented in video forms, thinking about reducing the amount of content, changing the voice. We had a wonderful presentation by Doug Kim from Microsoft at the Best Practices Conference last September about this, and really interesting and effective campaign that they're going through at Microsoft to change the voice of their publications. And it's not only for the games people, or they're already speaking with a different voice, or for the people working on the Office products, but it's the developer network people who are trying to change their voice to sound more personal and not so technical or boring. So change management becomes a really important way that we're looking at our challenges ahead. Better tools, expertise from outside, the help in selecting the right technologies, support from the corporate technology experts, the IT folks, convincing our staff that change is necessary, and building a compelling story to convince upper management that their support and funding is the only way this is going to happen. We can't simply add it on top of what it is that we're already trying to do. So, what are the questions that we might want to ask? What are the business strategies? This is the kind of thing I think is really important to us. And what I'll use as my segue into asking you for your questions. Can you make your company more competitive with better content? Well, look at the things we found out, as we study the move of customers to real content, real data about products before they buy. We know that consumer sites, I'll use as an example the Kohler Plumbing people. I went there a couple of weeks ago to look at a possible, new faucet. I've been interested in the faucets that let you put your hand under the faucet and it turns on. That might be really nice. But they sound complicated. And in fact, if you look at the documentation, it looks really complicated. You think, oh, gee, can I do this myself? Is it going to cost a lot to hire somebody to do it? Looks complicated. But then, right on the website, they had a video. And the video was so well done that it didn't make it look complicated. Now, right at that same point, I could get to the technical content, the instructions. Once I saw the video, the instructions made more sense, right? Once you could visualize what was going on, then you could read the instructions and say, okay, I know what they meant. Because everything is happening under the sink. Not exactly a place conducive to doing your best work. But there was, a video the technical content, all of it right on the same page as the marketing information about the new faucet. Our experience with Kohler and the Kohler Publications Manager said they get 1 million hits a month. I think that was the number. I might be misquoting that, but hundreds of thousands of hits at least, from people going to the website and looking at the technical content to decide whether they're going to buy a product. And we're hearing that same kind of shift happening throughout our industries. Is this going to work? What does it actually do? I'm not sure I believe the marketing content. I really want to look at the technical content. Is it going to answer my questions? Is it going to help me decrease the amount of time it will take for my staff to become productive on this product? It's a piece of information we used to call mean time to productivity. Can you make your company more competitive? Yes, the answer is yes. Better information, more useful information, easier to find information. Information delivered in mobile devices, information that includes video presentation can make your company more competitive. The case is clear. Will you use content to increase sales? Absolutely. Content increases sales. We see that evidence over and over again. Getting to the right information. Can you help increase customer retention? Well, we've done some studies over the past few years with the net producer score. And we know that customers will judge a company poorly when they can't find information to answer their questions. You know, now maybe you have, you know, the best customer service people in the world. They love to answer phone calls minute after minute. But how much time do your customers want to spend making those phone calls? Especially when they can find the information on their own. Will it increase your customer retention if you have better content? If you can explain exactly how something needs to be done? Can you also increase your group's productivity by having a better business strategy in place? Now, what do we mean by that? What do we mean by productivity? You know, it's how much value you produce. It's not how many pages. It's not how many books. It's not how many topics are stored in your content management system. It's how much value you produce for your company, right? That's the measure of productivity. You know, if you were running a factory and you were producing shovels, then you could say, you know, what is the value? Each employee's productivity is how many shovels they are able to produce. And if they get more productive, they produce more shovels, the same people. And the shovels have value. The shovels are sold. The shovels have a cost. So each employee produces so much revenue for that company. How much revenue does your group produce? That's the measure of your productivity. How much revenue? How much customer loyalty? How much increase in sales? How much to beat the competition does your group produce? Those are the links to the business strategy that you really need to make. Now I'm going to go and just present a couple more slides, just so you know what we're talking about. I know most of you know me already, but our company, Comtech Services, an international consulting. See, we do education, we do conferences, process maturity assessments, coaching, minimalism, and innovative publishing. The CIDEA, the community of managers, is responsible for disseminating information, supporting research, communicating with peers, and we invite you to our upcoming conferences, one of them at the end of this month. and the Best Practices Conference in September. Our co-sponsor of this webinar is the Data Conversion Laboratory, with years and years of experience of helping companies move their content from the old ways of doing things to the new ways, right? Helping them move that technology, move to cutting-edge technology, and making content valuable, right? XML and HTML conversion, ebook production, big data automation, conversion management, Harmonizer, which helps you find all the repetition you have in your content. That's a lovely system that I think is just wonderful to use. And the industries that DCL works in, a lot like, almost identical to those of us at Comtech. So I'll stop with that, and I'm going to go back to this slide and ask for questions. So Adam, have you found some of the questions for us?
Yes, several questions have come in. The first question is, what is the difference between social media and social networks? And this is in reference to the first slide.
Yeah, that was a reference. Well, because what we're looking at with social media is the Twitter, LinkedIn sites, Facebook pages, YouTube pages, which I would include there. Social networks might be your wikis, your web pages that allow customers to comment and add information of their own. So that's the way I would differentiate those two.
All right, excellent. Another question that has come in is, what does it take to move into mobile delivery?
Well, I hope we've answered some of those questions already. I think that you have to, well, a couple of things that I think are really important. One is that you have to have a business strategy. You have to say, what content are you going to present for mobile delivery? What platforms are you going to support? How are you going to support those platforms effectively on an ongoing basis? So the first part of that has got to be a business strategy. That's what we've been talking about, of course, in these last few slides. What is your business strategy? Then you have to develop a governance scheme to say, how are you going to manage this? Who's going to be responsible for checking the LinkedIn page daily? Who is going to be responsible for Twitter and the Twitter feeds? We're going to have a speaker from UPS at the Content Management Strategies Conference talking about how they manage the Twitter feeds to support UPS business, and what the techniques are that we should be using effectively. So you need a business case, and then you need a governance policy, a set of strategies that you're going to commit to supporting. Then you need to make your content ready. And you need to really look at, what is it going to look like if it's on a phone, on a small screen? What is it going to look like on a tablet? What is it going to look like, on a mobile device? What do we have to do to the content to scale it down so it becomes readable? And then, of course, you've got to you've got to have a plan for how you're going to restructure your content, and then you've got to do it. So a business strategy, a governance policy, a plan for restructuring your content, the activities to restructure the content, the right set of tools. So when people are asking, we need time, we need budget, we need better tools, they're asking the right questions. Those are the things that we really need to make a difference and really move into the mobile strategies that are in front of us.
Thank you, JoAnn. Another question has come in is, how is HTML5 being counted in this? I know in some corners HTML5 is being used to serve both HTML and mobile through responsive design.
Right. And I think that's HTML5, I think, is the only direction we can go in right now, because it gives us that capability to have different outputs, different device outputs from the same source. And I think that's going to be, that's critical, that, you know, HTML5 is the way you should be doing this.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, are potential customers checking whether companies offer these services of user assistance before making purchase decisions?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. That's a question I would love to be able to ask somebody. But I don't know if our database of people in surveys would even know the answer to that question. Are customers checking about what kind of user assistance is available? I'm going to take that as a really interesting question, and let's see if we can find any resources out there that might have an answer to that question. You know, what I would look at, you know, if I were looking for an answer to that, are customers checking ahead of time? I would look at some of the sources that we use, like McKinsey Marketing Organization or the AIM organization, AIIM, to see if there's an answer to that question. Okay, good question, but no answer right now.
Okay, another question, JoAnn, that's come in is the increase in HTML publishing primarily in the HTML5 format?
I don't know for sure. I think that this probably is the case. It would probably, you know, it would depend, and a lot of it would depend on the IT organization and how the websites are being run. But today, you know, it's really easy to get HTML5 output, especially if you're starting with XML input.
Okay. Thank you, JoAnn. Another question is, are there particular sectors that are dropping PDF from their publication outputs?
Another good question that I don't know the answer to. But that's an answer we could probably get from our data. So does the data show, can we filter by industry? What we are seeing, I have one answer to that, is that industries like medical devices seem very, very reluctant to make any kind of a move to social media. And certainly companies that keep everything behind a firewall, which is highly keeping all your information behind the firewall makes your customers very annoyed. And I think, you know, counterproductive. But it happens in companies that seem to be afraid that somebody's going to find out something about their product. But I think it is, you know, certainly medical devices has lagged behind. And we did see that. We did see that kind of in some of the filtering that we've done of the content. But this is a good question.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, have you noticed the number of writers increasing or decreasing as a result of making these changes?
Oh, gee, not an easy question to answer ever. I think there's a real challenge in the job market. There continues to be in lots of industries. There's certainly a move to global sourcing, which means there's a lot more people, but they don't happen to be in North America. So I don't think I could say that there's any correlation that I know of. What I would hope to see, however, if we can make the right business case, if we can really move a sense of value of what this content can provide to companies, I think we'll have less trouble maintaining staff than we have had in the past. I hope so.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, how do you synchronize synchronous online and asynchronous offline content, especially in a regulated industry such as healthcare, aviation, defense, rail, transportation?
Let's see if I can understand. Synchronize. I'd like to know more about what this means, the question means. If you say content that is online versus offline, do you mean by offline content that is in print? But if I talk about synchronization just in general, it might be this. Customers want up-to-date information. We are, I think, under a lot of pressure these days to update content on a regular basis, not wait, to the next release or ever to update content. I know, I've heard comments that say that customers are really distressed that older products, the content for older products is never updated. And, certainly when we're printing information, it doesn't get updated. So that I would think that you could not, you really need to look at, is your online information, is that going to be your primary resource? Is that where you're going, where the customer goes to find the most up-to-date information, rather than in something that was printed a year ago? It seems to me that it's not practical. I mean, look at this. Look at what's happened, for example, in the information that is given to this crew of a commercial airplane today. It used to be that they all carried around 60 pounds of paper and spent a lot of time updating that paper. The logistics of updating the paper is unbelievably difficult. Now, those same pilots carry mobile devices. All the content that they need is on the mobile device. It is that information quicker online. But, we're seeing a shift to online information, even in regulated industries. I think healthcare probably is furthest behind. Okay, Alan.
All right, well, thank you, JoAnn. We have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, we have lots of questions.
Still coming in. Another question is, how exactly is the public asking for more topic-based help? Most people I know not in tech documents do not even know what that is.
That's, again, a good question. I'm not sure that I can tell that specifically from the data. Remember, what we were doing is asking the respondents if they knew that their customers were asking for more topic-based information. I think that it's exactly what I'm seeing when we do customer studies. We'll talking to a customer, they're looking for specifically the answer to a question. I've got this error message. What do I do? Where's the solution? I don't want to read a dissertation on this. I just want one piece of information. And that's what we're hearing when we interview customers. Now, do they call that topic? I doubt it. But we can interpret it to say that they're looking for one specific, well-structured piece of information. That's what I would call a topic, right? So if I'm hearing from customers that they're saying, give me the answer to the question, give me just the information that I'm looking for.
Okay, well, thank you, JoAnn. We have time for one more question, and that
Okay.
question is, how are people dealing with translations of content in these new modes, like these videos, wiki articles,
Right.
etc.?
Yeah, not really well. We did ask in the survey whether people were translating, and they're not, which is a problem. The very high percentage said no, they were not translating, and I think you have to be really concerned about that. Now, excuse me, what's happening then? We're seeing some interesting techniques. For example, with videos. Just last week, right, I was talking to people who said we are using automated voices. Automated voices, by the way, have improved drastically. So the automated voice can read the text, can read the dialogue in whatever language. Now you have to be sure, of course, that the automated text that speaks Polish is doing a good job. We also know that in some cases, organizations are translating the script for video and presenting and making that script available, so that somebody can read the script in their own language while they're listening to the presentation. But I think the translation issues are significant. We have to remember, however, that despite what translators might think about it, the use of Google Translate online, the use of machine translation is improving and becoming more and more important to our industry, and I think it becomes the kind of solution that is really got to be considered very strongly to make sure this content is being translated into the right medium. Now, however, I'll mention one other thing that we discovered, and that is when I've seen content coming in on something like a LinkedIn page or a Facebook page, it's coming in multiple languages. So there's a whole conversation going on in Chinese on the LinkedIn page in parallel to the conversations going on in English. So customers are coming to those sites and asking questions, and hopefully somebody's answering them. Hopefully somebody in the right sales office in the right location is responding to those questions in more than one language. So it is very, very interesting. I think a great deal needs to be done, but it's the potential is out there.
Okay. Well, thank you, JoAnn. This webinar has been very informative indeed, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. This concludes today's broadcast. You can access the recorded version of this webinar from the Webinar Archives section of dclab.com. Our next webinar will be scheduled for Wednesday, April 9th at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it's titled Managing the Complexities of Conversion to S1000D. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you, Adam.